and welcome to SCM Pro Forum's India Logistics Strategy Retreat, Edition 2. Today, we have with us top logistic professionals who would discuss the strategies to build a technology-enabled, resilient, agile, and responsible logistics network ready for post-pandemic business ecosystem. A big shout out to all the industry leaders for agreeing and being a part of the discussion today. Let me take a few seconds to introduce us. As an institution, we are into education, training, research, and consultant. We offer our certification programs in supply chain, logistics, procurement, planning, and we have short-term to long-term courses customized designed for today's managers ready for tomorrow. We also customize and curate in-house capability program depending upon the need and gaps of an organization. Our other wing is SCM Pro Forums, where we conduct events, again, all around the ecosystem of supply chain. There also, we are well versed with different formats of events in the form of town halls, webinars, customized on-demand programs, and of course, coming back to physical in the new normal. So do visit our stall, which is there in the exhibition area, for more details about us and to know more about our certification programs. A big call out to our presenting partner SAP to support this event today. I would also like to thank our technology partner Freight Tiger, silver partner TCI Supply Chain Solutions, associate logistics partner Gina to support us ahead in the event. Last but not the least, our supporting partners Coin Consultancy, ATOs, Coco Port, and Akai as an association partner. Thank you all for your support to the retreat today. To all the attendees, we once again welcome you to the Logistic Retreat Strategy. Feel free to ask questions during the panel so that our expertise can answer you. Do feel free to go around and check out the exhibition stalls to check out the offerings that our partners have. In case you are stuck up anywhere, you can reach out to the help desk where people will help you out. Feel free to navigate and take a look at the entire exposition. Thank you so much. I welcome you all once again. And I would request on stage Girish, Education Head from ISCM, to take you to the floor ahead. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jaisal. And a big good afternoon to all attendees, my speakers, co-panelists, and sponsors, specifically SAP, presenting partner SAP, technology partner Freight Tiger, silver partner TCI, associate logistics partner Gina, and our other supporting partners, Coin Consulting, Swami Sons, ATOs, Coco Port, and Air Cargo Agents Association of India. We are here today to look at the global logistics disruption and the way forward. To begin the discussions and to begin the day's proceedings, I would like to welcome Dr. Rakesh Singh, Chairman, Institute of Supply Chain Management, to deliver his theme address on emerging trends in Indian logistics. Dr. Rakesh Singh, over to you.
Thank you, Girish, for this introduction. I welcome all of you to the second India Logistics Strategy Retreat. This year, we have changed the format of the retreat from peer-to-peer to more like a forum, where obviously the thought leaders and the industry leaders present here will discuss the valuable themes that are important for creating a logistics strategy for the future. We have consciously avoided vaccine logistics and other areas, but you can definitely bring it in the domain of discussion, as we would have a series of roundtable on critical areas of logistics challenges that are going to be redefining the overall themes of strategy in the logistics domain. let me share my screen and can it be seen? Can the screen be seen?
Yes, it can be.
Okay. Oh. This is. So, sorry for the technical glitch. This is why I say that technology is just one of the enablers in the process of change towards new normal. We are all gathered here after such a strong disruption in the economy, in our lives, in our livelihoods, and one of the critical areas that really would help India survive and the world survive is the logistics. ICM looked at picking up few themes for this particular conference, and I thought that we'll bring those themes into life here and take the discussion forward. And as we all know, the two phases of disruptions, the first phase and second phase from an Indian perspective, and multiple phases from the European and other countries' perspective. And the scenario which is being projected, multiple scenarios being projected, is not so rosy for the world. And amidst this uncertainty, I thought, how would logistics be affected? And what are the major areas of concern and the themes that we really need to address so that we can attain competitive advantages, we can bring both life and livelihood back to normal. I thought I'll start with the international logistics because as China was the first country to be affected, there are a lot of stories about China and its role in the pandemic. But leaving that aside, I wanted to have a fair look at what happens to the logistics. As supply stopped, as demand stopped for the first time in the international logistics, largely on the maritime, which covers almost 75 to 80% of the global movement of goods and services, we saw a very strong stoppage of trade, and that led to a situation when the trade started picking up from China and even from Europe and US. You saw that we faced a tremendous container crisis, and containers were lying across the globe, stuck in some places and not being traced or not being able to travel back. We also saw that while the China was recovering and the world was recovering, we saw that large amount of container which went from China carrying high value goods for the economy, including medical, came back without carrying any food or from US or Europe, and the empty container came again. They went back to China. That created an artificial container crisis between these trade lanes, and this is the largest trade lane in the world. Container crisis then became global because every port stopped. There was a lot of dwell time at each port, that leading to the whole thing. Then came the Suez Canal, and Suez Canal crisis really, heightened the crisis in the terms that while we thought that with the creation of Suez Canal, moving to the trade lanes would be better, we found that this got stuck for more than a month, and another 3 months, while you caught up in litigations with the Egyptian government, goods are lying down, goods have never reached their destinations, ships and this thing. And as this was going on, and as we are slightly coming up the Suez Canal, we had this crisis at the Antioch port, where alpha virus started happening in China. That led to a 30% workforce to work. 70% of the workforce went away. That led to a tremendous impact on the business. And as that happened, you see here, on a single day in June, this was June 22, you found that 67 vessels were waiting along the Antioch port. There were moving to Sekou and Nansha and Hong Kong in order to have places. But then suddenly the crisis got deepened because there are more congestion even in those areas, leading to congestion in a lot of East Asian ports. What happened exactly was very interesting. The dwell time for loading increased doubled, whereas the discharge dwell time increased triple, leading to a large number of vessels on the anchorage, leading to a huge crisis in the third largest trade lanes in the world, and hence the disruption of the maritime trade, leading to huge amount of increase in sea freight, multiple times increase in sea freight, which was continuously happening post the crisis, and creating a maritime trade crisis and movement crisis, non-availability on the one hand, and a huge price to be paid to move the goods through different routes. I think this is something that really is a crisis of the kind that we never thought, because when we talked about trade lanes, the bigger ships with more TUs, containers discovery, all that led to was that the global trade would increase, globalization would increase, because the companies have labor arbitrage in countries like China and India or East Asia. But they start, as the goods started moving and as the ships started getting bigger in size and bigger in size, the per unit cost decreased, and suddenly you find that that particular process has changed. Not only this movement, there is no, if you look at multimodal, in this case it will be from sea to air freight. The air freight prices also went up by multiple times, primarily because the passenger traffic stopped for a large part of it, the belly of passenger traffic, and more will come from the panel. I don't want to get into it. But there was a huge crisis. And this particular crisis was, in a way, a situation where we did not really anticipate such a massive outcome of any disruption, and hence the business continuity got affected. Look at the impact of this on even semiconductors. Availability of semiconductor is another issue, but even the shipment of this and the over ordering of semiconductors led to another extraordinary crisis. And with these kind of things, as we are coming back to normal, things have really accentuated. What do we do here is a big question. And given the geopolitical, given the disruptions in the maritime, given the disruptions in terms of pandemic, I think, when world is seeing there's large number of trains that are going to happen. And this particular BCC study clearly indicates that if you see this study, you find that trade boomed between 2015 to 19. Pandemic destroyed this trade across the globe. But when it will come back to normal, even by 2023, we expect a very different flows trends that are going to happen. And we can expect flows between blocks to shift dramatically. And why would the flow between the blocks shift dramatically, and what will be its impact? If the flows between blocks shift dramatically, the maritime crisis will further go into a big problem, primarily because what lies where in the typical supply chain textbooks will apply here, and there will be a lot of containers lying here and there will be a lot of disruption in the trade routes. I was just looking at India in this context, and this is a favorite study of mine when DHL looked at the globalization index 2 years back, and they have been continuing with this particular study. I find that India ranks 133rd out of 140 countries in terms of depth. What is depth? It's the large international flows relative to the size of the domestic economy. Whereas it goes everywhere, and its international flows distributed globally rather than narrowly focused, we rank 21st out of 140. Breadth is not a great sign, and if breadth is higher than depth, and as we have not been consolidating our trade lanes and our trade destinations, India is going to be one of the most affected country, and so is the maritime, and freight rates may change and freight availability may change. I think the experts here would know better. But for me as an academics, I see it as a great, tremendous problem of mapping. And unless the mapping is done properly, this is going to be a big change. India needs to rethink on the line of this thing, as the United States has done. India needs to rethink on the line of this thing, as the United States has done. India needs to rethink on the line of this thing, as the United States has done. India needs to rethink on the line of this thing, as the United States has done. India needs to rethink on the line of this thing, as the United States has done. India needs to rethink on the line of this thing, as the United States has done. India needs to rethink on the line of this thing, as the United States has done. India needs to rethink on the line of this thing, as the United States has done. India needs to rethink on the line of this thing, as the United States has done. India needs to rethink on the line of this thing, as the United States has done. India needs to rethink on the line of this thing, as the United States has done. India needs to rethink on the line of this thing, as the United States has done. India needs to rethink on the line of this This particular slide says that flows between blocks to shift dramatically. Why? People are going to do reshoring. I think within supply chain audit is a great example of that. That will have a tremendous impact. Even if 10% impact it will have for the US, it will have a tremendous impact for the global economy. Then you need to have China +1+1 policy or China +3 policy, or you may have to have nearshoring, or what we call it in India as localization. And it is must, because large number of countries in the world and companies in the world have realized that if their time of recovery during such pandemic, or during the trade crisis, or during even the crisis in the sea, if the time of recovery is less than the time of is more than the time of survival, they will be dead. There will be a tremendous relocation of the world trade in terms of supplies, and nearby supplies will be more affected. And this is already the global data from the OECD clearly indicates that companies are thinking that way. There are some trend already. We are still in the crisis. Securing and business continuity may be more important now, but things are going to happen in a big way. In terms of global trade, India also needs to look at building its own container corridors, manufacturing container, as CCI has already gone ahead and floated tender. India needs containers because it's going to be a very critical areas in the long run. We need to see, and the impact is as these changes come in, the logistics, global and local, will change, and the requirement of global and local logistics may change. And that is where we need, our logistic players have to be very clear. The second trend, I think, in India is this. In the last 7 years, there's no place to meet the government. I've been traveling for companies. I have been traveling on my own to my hometowns. What I've seen is that there's something that is tremendously changing, not complete. There's a lot of things to be done. But in terms of network structure, corridors, connectors, last mile links, in terms of enabler logistics paths, in terms of asset efficiency, percentage of toll booth with electronic tolling that you've seen here in India, Bombay too, investment allocations from road, rail, and leading to the cost, and hence companies do not eat. India is at the brisk of change. If these processes are going on, companies need to adopt them into their overall supply chain network optimization. And I think Indian companies have gone unilaterally in the model without thinking very critically about what is the network that they can adopt. Why can't they move to rural? The constraints more important than the opportunity. There is no objective cost benefit analysis done. This is one thing that India needs to do. As the pandemic has shown that cities are also not safe in terms of infrastructure and largely health infrastructure. But in last 10 or 20 years, right since Manmohan Singh started what we call it as liberalization, when IT started doing well, what we have seen is that urban India is changing and moving beyond metros to tier 2, tier 3, and tier 4 cities. I think PwC report says that around 500 million people will live in the cities by 2025. That means there will be migration of rural people to the urban areas. Apart from 8 metros, the report identified 42 new wave cities, with Surat and Jaipur as the new metros, and 10 high potential cities that will work as urban centers. It also identifies that there are other 26 tier 2 cities, 33 tier 3 cities, and 5,000 tier 4 cities. That's blocks. Where are the blocks? Miss 100 village is a block in India. And with 6,380 villages, I think the vaccine has exposed us, not just vaccine, more than vaccine, the availability of medicine in the rural India. I think it has been a black box. Nobody knows what happened. And there has been no network of hospitals. No, if we claim about IT, I have a suggestion. Why can't IT connect every major hospital to every primary health center? And the transfer could have been so brilliant if IT could have been used in a big way as a control tower. India needs to have a hub of IT control tower with infrastructure connected everywhere, as one of big tooth hospitals connected everywhere, like Walmart does its retail business, Indian hospitality and healthcare sector. So I think there's a lot of opportunity even in healthcare, though we come out of crisis. We have gone through difficult times. There is opportunity to build so that we don't go through the crisis. And similarly, if you really look at 5,000 Tier 4 cities, and I've seen the next retail concept of Reliance, what we have seen is that they've gone to the 5,000 Tier 4 cities and they are meeting villages. And I think villages always work in terms of a supply chain hub, where in the heart, 15, 20 villages came. This next blocks can be that hot, and I think anyone who has reached this blocks has been the beneficiary in the pandemic. And if you are in the essential commodity, you would know better. India needs to this 6,300, 800 villages through this 5,000 blocks rather than going 6,380 villages directly. Can we design a temperature control for the backward flow of essentials in terms of perishables and medicines, as well as normal logistics with speed and velocity to reach the market in the best time? That's the biggest team challenge for India, and ICM completely believes that this is the way to go. And this is the first primary things that we need. IT can be an enabler. It cannot solve this problem. We have seen the pains of this during the pandemic, the phase 2. The phase 1 were completely out of rural areas in the sense that it was not affected so much. This year it has gone very, very bad, and nothing has been known, because if these are black boxes, if they're not connected to the hospital network, they're not connected through any administrative network, you cannot know this. And here is the logistics. You want to be sustainable. Here is one role that all logistic big players who claim to be very sustainability oriented needs to really look at it. Finally, I agree. India needs a very well connected facilities of logistics through IoT, automation, blockchain, and everything should create a system of network where you create data. And this control tower based data can definitely help you to manage your supply chain better. I have a feeling that as technology takes over after the development of the physical part of it, and when you're talking about what is called, I forget the term, but if you look at digital and physical together, you will see that the digital will be able to connect and bring that kind of a transparency in terms of visibility, mapping, track and trace, and also it can help us to create a control tower. And this control tower will give us all kinds of data for our distribution planning, for production planning, for our procurement planning, and for our demand planning. And for your procurement planning, there's something more. If you are an auto company, you know that you have 18,000 tires in your supply chain. You can map all those 18,000 tires. And if you can map all those 18,000 tires, then that can be brilliant. We need to move a little more. India is a very fragmented logistics industry. As I have said, digital teams, the digital teams can be used in a brilliant way to create shared logistic capability for partners and even competitors. You can have transportation shared in a very long-term plan manner. You could have your warehouses capacity shared in a long-term plan manner. There could be more collaborative platforms for transportation and for warehouses connected to the control towers of the company. I think in the long run, if logistics has to get its big place, then the biggest challenge between disconnect between the user and the service provider can only be minimized if you have a control tower and everybody is subsumed on this control tower in terms of technology, and everybody starts seeing same schedules and part. Maybe that's the way collaboration on the physical front and on the process front, and that can help to this. But what we need is, and what logistics companies don't do, and this is my conclusion, maybe one does not agree, that they do not plan well. They do not have an integrated business planning. They do not think of the long term in the big way. And hence, there is no mid-tactical, short-run and long-run planning along with the partners. And I think then if relationship remains transactional and not relational, you cannot do this. We need to move towards more relational relationship. We should combine to create platforms to provide solutions. There could be more collaboration between a technology firm and different aspect of logistics, so that you provide a very aggregate and bundle activities in the most brilliant way, even if you are fragmented. Or the larger player will emerge and things will become this thing. Finally, to end this particular theme, I said everything has to be sustainable. And IT is a great labeler in this. I have seen the process of movement has already begun. We have seen that the very first thing in procurement, you don't only map your supplier, sub-supplier, you map what are his best practices in terms of labor, child, and other activities. You also trace the quality of goods, the origin of goods, and that would be a kind of a sustainability principle that will. Secondly, use IT, create organizational agility through proper planning, reduce too much of wastage of use of transportation, warehousing, and waste, and create something that can be brilliant. Third, we need to be ESG compliant. Logistics need to understand ESG and put that into the economic, social, and governance framework. And if we do this, I'm sure the things we are preparing ourselves for this. One good thing is that all industrial spaces companies are funded only if they are highly ESG compliant. And I think that's a good way that the new generation of quality infrastructure in terms of warehouses are sustainable and ESG compliant. So these are the 5 themes that I thought are important to think beyond the internal competitive pressures and tactical planning. Thank you very much. And I once again welcome all of you to the 2nd India Logistics Strategy Retreat.
Thank you, Dr. Rakesh Singh. That's a fantastic overview of the emerging challenges and themes in the Indian logistics space. Planning, technology, sustainability, ESG compliances. We will now move on quickly to the first keynote panel discussion that we are having. The topic of the discussion is shaping logistics for the next normal. This is a thought leadership strategy retreat, and therefore we do not have moderators. We have experts who will be chairing each panel. I will start with the panel chair. The keynote panel discussion of shaping logistics for the next normal will be chaired by Dr. Rakesh Singh, Chairman, Institute of Supply Chain Management. The other speakers who would be on the panel are Sachin Bhanushali, Director and CEO, Gateway Rail Freight Limited. As I'm calling out, I would request you to kindly switch on your camera and microphone so that we can see you. On your screen, you will on the top right-hand side, you will make it widescreen. The second panelist I would like to invite is Jasjit Sethi. Speaker is Arif Siddiqui, founder and CEO Coin Consulting. Anup Chavan, Chief Operating Officer, Avashya CCI and All Cargo Logistics, and Hemant Prabhu Keluskar, Chief Operating Officer, Hiranandani Communities. I would invite Dr. Rakesh Singh and all the other panelists to kindly come on and take the discussion forward. You have 1 hour. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Girish. And welcome to all my fellow industry leaders for being the part of this first keynote panel. And as I said, the whole concept of retreat was more a discussion rather than a panel discussion. I think we will keep that format on, but with little more, organized way, because we do not have the luxury of it. I think Arif was there on the first retreat also. That was physical, and I think that has a very different format. But I think we will go back to the physical one once we come back to the normal. To start the session, let me raise a few questions. As I said in my keynote address, these were larger macro issues, those issues which are, contextual. Those issues are outside-in factors in terms of defining strategies. Those factors help us to build scenarios and hence build capabilities. Now, in this keynote factor, I thought we will look at the dynamics of disruptions, their impact on uncertainty for businesses, and how they have affected the overall ecosystem of business. What has been the response of the organizations, and what are the future strategies to visibly create a capability in order to manage further such disruptions or minimize these disruptions. Because, as I said, organizations whose time of recovery would have been, less than the time of survival will die. And I think this pandemic has clearly brought about that particular fact. And as in our discussion, I said we look at key themes for India first, and then look at within that what has been happening. I know that if I look at the pandemic, I see 3 or 4 major shifts that has happened. One, there has been a complete shift in the basket of consumption, primarily because of the different incidents of this pandemic over a period of time. There has been some revival and some reversal and some new trends. So the consumer behaviors have changed. 2, because of the intensity of the epidemic and no contact policies and lockdowns, we have seen a sudden surge of no contact consumption behavior, and hence the rise of the omni-channel and the e-commerce. Third, we have seen unprecedented movement of people in an underdeveloped economy from urban to rural areas, which essentially also points out to us, the lower growth of logistics in the economy. A student of mine, I was speaking to him post GST. He's a speaker and moderating the second panel, Satish. He told me, and he said a very interesting thing in that discussion that we had while having dinner, that logistics is the lifeline of the economy. If you see an upsurge, you see a growth. And I think that's so true. You have seen any upsurge, even during pandemic, you have seen the growth. And hence, what we have seen very clearly is that logistics, like any other commodity, even though being serviced, is blind to the country beyond certain geographies.